The video that you are about to watch is an excerpt of the original. After my long efforts in dealing with YouTube's copyright management system, I had to give up. I haven't given up my projects though. And while we cannot publish the entire video here due to the imminent danger of having the channel closed down, you can still enjoy excerpts which we've carefully chosen in order to make this video meaningful, fun, and educational. If you want to watch the complete video, including the sound of the music from the original recording, as well as special edition videos which will never be published here on YouTube due to the same copyright issues, and the Beatles 150 series, as well as other series and courses, you're welcome to visit my Ko-fi or Patreon page. I hope you enjoy this video. Chord change. Verse. Hi everyone. We are back to the Beatles again, and this is the 24th song in the series, and I Love Her. We're still in the same album. Vlad told me that this song is a little bit different than the ones I've been listening to so far, so I'm curious to see what the difference is. And I'm also kind of excited that I'm already at number 24, because that means one more, 25, I'll be 1/6 through the project, and so I'm feeling like I'm making a little progress forward. Well, let's see what there is to read about this song. It is pop, classified as the genre pop. The romantic relationship between McCartney and actress Jane Asher spawned a good many songs in the Lennon-McCartney catalogue. The first of such songs was And I Love Her, which was written about 10 months after they had met. When the Radio Times article was released on May 2nd, 1963, it featured a posed picture of Jane Asher screaming in excitement for the Beatles. Her quote being, "Now, these I could scream for." Well, sounds like she's playing along with all the girls, huh? She met the group for an interview backstage after the performance and then ended up with them at the Royal Court Hotel in Chelsea afterward. I remember we were all surprised by her red hair because we'd only ever seen her in black and white before, Paul explained in his 2021 book, The Lyrics. All four Beatles tried to impress this young actress, who they recognized from Jukebox Jury, but she ended up with Paul in the end. And I Love Her was written in the basement music room at Jane Asher's parents' home in London. Paul had moved in with the Ashers in November of 1963 upon Jane's parents' request. This gesture was in the long tradition of giving a garret room to a starving artist, Paul relates in his book. So I had a little room up at the top next to Jane's brother Peter's room. Paul frequently met with John in the Asher home to write songs, although this one was apparently written by McCartney alone, at least initially. "I wrote it on my own," McCartney stated. "I can actually see Margaret Asher's upstairs drawing room. I remember playing it there." Nice memories. Now, about the recording, Paul relates, "We'd go into the studio, 10 in the morning, and this was the first time George and Ringo had heard any of the songs. This is how good they were. So John and I would go, 'It goes like this.' And they'd go, 'Mm-hmm.' George would cop the chords, not writing them down. It's just like, 'Yeah, right, I can see what you're doing because I'm one of you, you know? I didn't write it, but I see what you did.' And Ringo would just stand around with his sticks and just tick-a-tick-tick do a little thing." I love the imagery of that paragraph. George Martin was inspired to add a chord modulation in the solo of the song, so George Martin is getting involved here. A key change that he knew would be musically very satisfying. We shifted the chord progression to start with G minor instead of F sharp minor, so up a semitone. Well, okay, that's kind of technical speak, but basically, when you listen, and it's actually fairly common, when you listen to a song with several verses, often on the last verse or somewhere near partway through, the musicians will shift it up, kind of make the pitch start a little bit higher. It kind of brightens it and adds a little bit of lift to the whole energy of the song. I think George Martin's classical training told him that that would be a really interesting change, and it is. And this sort of help is what started to make the Beatles stuff better than that of other songwriters. And I was just thinking actually about my song, And I Love Her. I give her all my love. I had that. But then George comes in with do 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 do. Well, I don't know exactly how it goes, so I'm just reading off the page here. Now, you think about that. That's the song. I better figure out what that is. But he made that up on the session. Because he nixed the chords and we just said, it needs a riff. I didn't write that. In his book, The Lyrics, Paul adds, we were about to record it, and George Martin said, I think it would be good with an introduction. And I swear, right there and then, George Harrison went, well, how about this? And he played the opening riff, which is such a hook. The song is nothing without it. We were working very fast and spontaneously, coming up with ideas. In the case of this song, the two Georges, George Harrison with the intro, and then George Martin on the key change into the solo, gave it a bit more musical strength. We were saying to people, we're a little bit more musical than the average bear. And then, of course, the song, which is now in F major, or arguably D minor, eventually finishes on that bright D major chord, a lovely, pleasing resolution. So I was very proud of that. Interesting recollections and this last sentence. Now in F major, or arguably D minor, so it sounds like it's a bit ambiguous in tonality. I'm going to be curious to notice that as well. And then ending on D major. This is sounding like a fun one to explore, so let's dive in. I was really taken in by the tonality of the piece because it's true. It's set as if it were major, but the sound is really minor mostly through, and so we could have this whole big debate about whether is it major, is it minor, and we could argue different things either way. I think it's kind of pointless to open up that can of worms. So I'm not going to go that direction here, but it would be a fascinating discussion to have anyway, just for fun. But anyway, this whole minor quality, I was thinking as I was listening, the way the melody is, it has a sort of haunting minor quality to it. Not sad, not lonely, not any of that. I guess I would describe it as sounding lovesick. In other words, he's not with her in the moment. Maybe he's sitting in his room or whatever and he's writing this song, but really he's pulled that direction, and somehow that quality comes out in the melody. It's such a gentle piece of music. There's a sort of grace to it, which I would have never said that the Beatles' music had grace or elegance back when they first started. I still remember Twist and Shout and thinking, what is this? I'm imagining Ringo listening to this and thinking, all right, I've got to do something with percussion, but I don't want to mess up the mood, so just tick, 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 tick. Yeah, that works. And it adds this nice little extra texture to it. Same with the guitar. So we have this strumming opening introduction, which apparently was a very last minute addition. But something like the arpeggios in the second verse. So delicate. And they're pitched kind of high. And so it adds to this whole minor melancholy, not sad melancholy, but more just thinking in the direction of the one you love. Well, let's go back through and listen and pause along the way, little details, see what we find, okay? And I like this hook, this opening that has this little dee-dum-bum-bum, which is, I guess, what they call the hook. Dee-dum-bum-bum. It really catches your ear and pulls you in, and you hear it a few times. On top of that, it's just the simple chords. We have a little hook to lead us in. Chord change. Verse. And so it goes. I mean, it's so simple, and yet it belongs so beautifully at the beginning of this piece of music. As far as a piece of music that doesn't really require a lot of percussion, what's Ringo to do? Yet again, he comes up with something that doesn't just fill space, but enhances the entire musical experience. Okay, let's move on past the intro. Well, this melody, da 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 dum bum bum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum bum 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 bum, da 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 dum. I'm kind of drawing the shape in the air, and it follows this beautiful rise and fall, pitch-wise, melodically. At the same time, it has this lovely flow. As I was saying a little bit ago, it has this feeling of grace to it, almost like a dancer. Da 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 dum bum bum, da 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 dum, da 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 dum ba da da dum, da 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 dum. And then it goes again, and there is such a lovely balance, symmetry, and yet without being square. I love the way this guitar comes in. Dum, bum, 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 bum. It's such a harpy little figure. Slightly different chord. Such a sweet little addition, and a nice way of varying the second verse, because the melody stays the same. These little variations, you can hardly call them variations even, because it really is the same thing the second time around. Perhaps just an extra layer added in, and not even an opaque layer. It has a transparency to it. It just adds a bit of extra texture to the entire thing. Now there's something else in the percussion that starts to stick out to me a bit more than it did at the beginning. Not just the wood blocks, but there's also a sort of pom 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 pom. Again, very gentle, very much in the background. It's a textural addition, just like the arpeggios. Or I should say not an addition, because this percussive texture was there from the beginning. It's more like the ground on which all the other textures are growing out of. It's so interesting the way it just ends. And I love her. Almost like it's unfinished. And the way they finish it is to wrap it up is just to play this little ending, which kind of is the same hook again. Dee-dum-bum-bum. It really is a sweet little song. And I think I understand what they meant when he said, we're a little more musical than, what was it, all the rest of the bears out there? What an expression. A little more musical, a little more polished, because this isn't any grand piece of music. And they weren't trying to make it be that. They weren't claiming it was something impressive. Just a little more polish, a little tweak here, a little touch there, something to turn it into this really beautiful, small, I think of something like, I don't know, a piece of nicely turned pottery, a little vase or something like that, where every detail is just balanced and it's lovely to hold in your hands and turn it every way and look at it. And I was saying a little bit ago how this is sending me back to some of my student pieces. I remember as a piano student studying a little, I guess it was a minuet by Bach. Or not necessarily by Bach, but from one of his notebook collections. And it was set in a minor key. This idea of a minuet dance set in a minor key, and there was this strange combination of buoyancy, smoothness, and melancholy, all brought into one little delicate bundle of notes. That is how this song feels to me. It reminds me of another one that's actually a song, or more than a song. One of Schumann's pieces. Well, if you listen to his Dichterliebe, it's a collection of songs, and the opening has the same melancholy. Is it major? Is it minor? And then the voice comes in with this lovely melody. Well, maybe I could go to the piano and play just the opening. I'll have to look it up, find the score. Just give me a couple minutes and I'll try to play it so you can feel the similarity that I am catching with it. Okay, so I found the score and I'm just going to play the opening piano part so you can, and I want you to remember, this is not about it sounding melodically or rhythmically like this Beatles song. The idea is that it's the mood, it's the quality of the music that somehow to me feels very similar. And I guess I'll try to make sure that Vlad puts a link to the complete Dichterliebe in the description, so you can check for that and remind him if it doesn't show up there. All right, so here's how the piano starts. And then of course the piano continues, the voice continues, but this opening, there's something incredibly sweet and simple, and at the same time it has this tender melancholy quality to it. That is what I get from this song in the Beatles series. It catches me in that way, and I guess that's what I think is so special about it. So this has been a really nice listening experience for me. Not a song that I would say is electrifying or groundbreaking, but just incredibly, beautifully, simply elegant. And, well, we'll see what comes next. I'll see you soon.